All right, we're back for another week of less Kevin, more tech.
A lot less Kevin.
A lot less Kevin. So we got a little bit of an upgrade in a co-host this week. And Christine.
Hey, Les.
How you doing?
Good to be here.
Good. That's great.
It's even better to welcome Alex with the Disability Network, Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston, and Izzie. So Alex is the executive director, and Izzie is the employment program manager, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right, I got it right.
So when I said an upgrade, I mean, everything was perfect there. You got all the names and job titles. It's awesome.
Good. So, little background. I actually met Alex it was before COVID.
Pre-COVID,
so
yep.
4 or 5 years ago.
I think so.
And we were in the Ann Arbor Chamber's leadership program.
Very good.
And so we met there, and Alex would come to some of the March Madness events that we would have, and I'd see him in different, whether it's the Ann Arbor, Chamber's year-ender or different different things like that. And recently, at the year-ender, met one of his coworkers, and myself and a few other folks here at UTEC went over and had a tour. At that time, it was the Center for Independent Living, and just learned I had no idea really what you guys did, so it was really eye-opening for me. So I thought, just with your new branding, really excited to have you guys on a guest to talk to us about the name change, the rebranding, and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us today. It's nice to be able to come out and talk with folks about the things we do. I think one of the things we've always struggled with for years and years, and we've been around since 1976. Wow. Is just letting folks know who we are, what we're about, and all of those good things. It was probably, so 1976. For most of our time open, they had been located at the Georgetown shopping mall area. It's now some condos and other things. It was a small little strip mall. This was before Izzie's time. And now we're over at Research Park, which is not just down the road a little bit here and by the Social Security office. But we've been doing a lot of work over the years. Centers for Independent Living are organizations that are by and for people with disabilities. So a majority of our team are people with disabilities, and that's anybody who identifies as a person with a disability. We're not looking for confirmation. We're not looking for what kind of disability is. It's what you consider yourself. And, with that said, we do a lot of advocacy work. We do a lot of service work in the community. We have a pretty, I think, wide mandate in terms of the work that we do, as well as the population that we work with. I myself am a person with a disability. I've had a disability my whole life, and did not know about the organization myself until after college. And so really just kind of fell into it, and I've been there since 2006 now as staff.
Wow. Izzie?
Yeah, I actually started in 2019. I actually came in as a consumer, which is someone that we serve for benefits counseling, and didn't know an organization like this existed. I fell in love with it. I was like, I need to work here. I need to do this work, and just kept hunting for jobs. And 2 weeks later, a job opened up.
That's great.
Yeah.
And now you're running all the employment programs, right?
Yeah, see, and also running the benefits counseling program, which is the service I was a consumer for to begin with.
That's great. Great.
So what is the employment piece?
So the employment piece is to help people with disabilities get the skills they need to obtain and maintain jobs. We help people more with the interpersonal skill development that they need for jobs, such as the interview skills, resume. It could be such thing as soft skills, how to communicate with your coworkers and bosses, things like that. And then also, like I mentioned, benefits counseling.
Right.
So helping people understand how work would impact public benefits and such as Social Security benefits.
Very important.
And then for those employment, is that for the 3 counties that you guys then service with Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston?
Correct.
Now, do you guys have more than one location?
We have a location here in Ann Arbor, and we have a physical location down in Monroe as well.
Okay.
Don't currently have a physical location in Livingston County. It was a goal of mine when I started in my current position, and then COVID happened, and we all went home and for a few years, and so it made no sense to look for a space. But we definitely would like to find something back up there again. It's I think the community really appreciates having a physical location and feels like you're connected and inside those communities. And as I think we all know, Livingston is as different from Washtenaw as Washtenaw is from Monroe.
Right.
And so we have to try to balance all of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about the name change, branding change, when that happened and why it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to. So we've been at Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living since 1976. And independent living these days, I think, means something different than what it meant when we were founded. For us, for people with disabilities, the independent living movement was a movement for people with disabilities back in the late 60s, early 70s. It was about civil rights. It was about being in the community. It was about being able to go to college. It was about making accessible spaces because we didn't have curb cuts and wide doorways and all of those things back then. And so basically, there's a gentleman named Ed Roberts, and a number of his colleagues were able to get together in Berkeley, California. He was a student at the time, and they started the first Center for Independent Living, which really has spawned off, I think, hundreds around the country. There's 15 of us here in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And, for a long time, I think the name made sense for us. So over the years, we've grown in terms of who we serve. And I would say in the last 10 or 15 years, the directors of all of the Centers for Independent Living here in Michigan had started talking about rebranding and talking about a different name for ourselves, realizing that now Centers for Independent Living are oftentimes thought of as retirement homes or places where folks go and live. We don't do any sort of residential services. We don't own any housing, any of those kinds of things. For us, it's about being in the community. So, we've had confusion like that over the years. I'm sure Izzie and others can attest. We get phone calls on the regular about that kind of thing. And so I think the other piece was just bringing disability forward and letting folks know, who we are up front, mm-hmm. what we do. And so about 10 years ago, the CIL started changing their names. So most of them went from...
In Michigan?
Michigan.
Okay.
Yep, in Michigan. And started going from Center for Independent Living to Disability Network something.
Right.
So, sometimes they're lucky and they maybe have an easy geographic area which they serve. So that the folks up in Traverse City are Disability Network Northern Michigan. For us, that's kind of a weird thing, though, right? Because
3 counties.
We're kind of Southeast Michigan, but we're kind of not Southeast Michigan, and so we couldn't use that. Folks didn't want to use creative names like Huron Valley or anything like that because they didn't feel like it was descriptive enough. And so we put off changing our name for years and years and years. And I think the other reason, too, was just the longevity of the name.
Right.
And then in recent times, we brought the conversation up again, and I think I've been part of the conversation 4 or 5 times in the time I've been here. And finally, something started to stick. We started to get some momentum, and we just decided, you know what, we're going to do this, and we're just going to go with our counties. It's long, it's cumbersome, mm-hmm. but it says who we are and who we serve. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the name network, that implies to me that, you have your role, your charter, and your community work. But it also, when I hear the word network, it sounds like there's some interaction. Oh,
absolutely. There's definitely quite a bit of interaction, I think, between all of the different organizations. Mm-hmm. So like I said, there's 15 of us covering the entire state, including the UP. We have done anything together from creating programming to just connecting folks and making sure that they feel like they have peers amongst them in the work that they're doing. So, Izzie, I think you've been involved in some of those kinds of activities in the past with other folks from other centers.
Yeah, just finding out more what they do. How mm-hmm. can we all better help each other and the people we serve, and also servicing people. If someone from Wayne County calls us, it's not just be like, oh, no, I can't help you. It's how can I help you get connected to your network,
right?
Your county as well, and fostering also opportunity for our consumers to connect with other people with disabilities.
Yeah, I would assume that if somebody, that you were working with here and they had, for whatever reason, moved to Wayne County, you would be able to help them through the network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, have the resources because you've got your peers and best practices.
Yeah, and in each one of us, we have what we call our core services that we're required to provide, which are information and referral, which is basic information connecting for folks, independent living skill development, which can be anything from helping somebody learn how to schedule out their day to some of the things Izzie talked about with employment readiness. Peer support is just that idea of folks with disabilities connecting with one another, sharing experiences, all of those good kinds of things, creating community. And there's advocacy, which is anything from, banging on doors and kind of the more active advocacy things to just being present in the community, making sure that people with disabilities' voices are being represented, and also just educating folks about people with disabilities and the disability community in general. And then lastly, there's what we call community transition, which part of that is working with youth with disabilities. Some of what Izzie's done over the years is connecting with youth with disabilities as they transition out of school, so out of high school. And then the other part of it is assisting individuals who are currently in nursing facilities to move back out into the community. There are services and supports in place for folks to be able to do that. They often don't know that. And, it's just a better living situation, I think, for those folks with disabilities. They're back in the community. It helps save money for the government, so they've always liked that. And it's probably one of the most important things that we do, but it's also one of the more challenging things that we do. Izzie, did you want to talk about some of the pre-ets and the youth work that you do?
I could talk about. So one of the big things is youth. So helping youth get ready to think about post-secondary life. What is life going to be like outside of high school when they no longer have those supports that come with maybe receiving special education services, maybe not. So thinking about whether it's to go to college or to enter the workforce right away, things like that, getting them connected to what college could look like,
right?
What skills are needed for that. I think a big thing is self-advocacy, because people with disabilities have to often self-advocate a lot more than a non-disabled person. So teaching them self-advocacy so they can stand up for themselves, but also understanding what they need to do.
Yeah, so one of the things I've heard both of you mention is the desire to be in the community, get the message out. So what are some of the things, because both of you were unaware of this organization coming out of high school, right? And it's helped you dramatically, and now you're charting a career in that path. So what are some of the things that can be done to help with the community to get that message out?
Any thoughts first, Izzie?
What are some of the things you're doing?
That's going to take a thought.
I can talk about some of those things. I just didn't want to be a microphone hog. I feel like I'm doing all the talking and want Izzie to have a chance to.
Well, Izzie's sitting back there going, she's the brains of the operation. That's what I can see her. She's thinking. Yeah,
so, I think over the years, youth have been important in trying to connect with them, but I think there's really been additional emphasis put in place by CILs across the country and the federal government as a whole to support youth with disabilities in that transition process. And so, I think now more than ever, we're working to connect with our intermediate school districts, our high schools, and letting them know that we're here and that we can support folks. We're oftentimes asked to go into provide advocacy support or just support in general for people or students when they're going through their individual education plans. So those are some of the early ways I think we connect with people. We also do, and it's varied over the years with resources, but try to do a lot of social and recreational programming. And that's a good way, I think, to get youth with disabilities involved in our program just in general, because they're always looking for things to do. It's not as simple anymore as just sending somebody to a camp or going for a bike ride even. Sometimes you need specialized equipment. Sometimes you need a specialized camp. And so being able to let folks know what those are, where those are, and how to get those resources is also a good way to connect with youth. And I think to that end, we've connected with a lot of other recreation groups over the years to kind of help just grow that network and connect.
I think too, one of the things that I thought was really neat in your center over basically across the street, was, I didn't, the Center of Independent Living, that name had me confused on what you guys actually did. So it was eye-opening when I was there. But you guys actually have programs there, and Shannon and I forget the other gal that I was talking to was going through some of the like a lot of the fun programs you're doing. You're doing like taste testing where you could be like either there or like virtual, and they were doing like different, like they had like all different kind of Oreos, right, set out. And then like you were doing taste testing with like ranking all the different Oreo flavors. But you guys, I mean, that's all fun. But you do a lot of programming and classes and things like that right there at your facility, right?
Yep, correct. So pre-COVID, basically everything that we did was in person. We didn't really have much of a presence in terms of being able to provide services remotely. Kind of sort of did it, not really. But then, COVID hit and we had to go the other way. And as we've come out of COVID, we feel like the best way to try and do as much as possible is when we can is to provide hybrid services, allowing folks the opportunity to connect remotely if they're not able to get to our building or wherever we might be working in the community. And it could be transportation barriers, it could be health barriers, it could be a variety of things. And so we figure by kind of having both options available, we're doing the best of both worlds, hopefully, and connecting with more people. But we do try to have fun things, the Oreo Club, and I think with that even they talk about self-advocacy sometimes, and they try to talk about other topics, so it's fun and educational to some degree. We also offer, I think, a number of other arts opportunities, whether that's been just kind of your standard art and design classes or it's been we're restarting a theater program. We had theater kind of thing going prior to COVID for many, many years, and that went dormant, and we're looking at kind of bringing that back out again. And so I think for us, it's been helpful to look at it as kind of a general arts exposure for folks. Some other CILs maybe might focus on sports or athletic activities. And then there's also, here in Washtenaw, in Ann Arbor especially, there are additional programs and opportunities out there for young people with disabilities, or anybody of any age really with disabilities, to participate in those sports activities. And so we've kind of made a conscious decision to scale back a little bit on that, because it's duplicating resources that maybe University of Michigan or Michigan Medicine might be offering.
You do a lot of work with like Washtenaw Community College, University of Michigan, as an organization?
So University of Michigan, definitely. And it feels like a lot sometimes, and then it doesn't, right? Because University of Michigan is just so big.
Yeah.
But we've had a long-standing relationship with physical medicine and rehabilitation, family medicine. But, I think in the last couple of years, we've also developed relationships with the School of Design, the School of Architecture, School of Social Work, School of Education, and over probably a variety of other folks that you've probably been involved in a few things. Oh, you could talk about the architecture thing, actually.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I can talk about the architecture thing. We worked with students who were getting their master's in different materials. So, I can't think of the technical term, but it was more understanding materials. And so we partnered with them, where we gave them what we call disability awareness training, so that they could be mindful when these architect students went out into the workforce. Being more mindful of disability is more than just a code. Oh, I need to, per the Americans with Disability Act, I need to do this. By giving them disability awareness training, but also giving them a chance to work within our building, which we call our art gallery. So they did different projects to make our art gallery more accessible, more for people on the spectrum.
So that sounds like a great experience for the student. Learning, not from a book, but in the field, so to speak.
Yeah, and I will say, as for someone who is a disabled person, it was interesting for me. We were teaching the students, but we were also learning from them, because I think sometimes as a person with disability, we have an idea of what access should look like, but then we got to learn kind of what are the barriers to an architect, as well.
What was like their top barrier?
I think the top area for architecture for them
Yes, for
was they don't get the education. They get the codes, they get this, but they don't think of the person behind those codes.
They don't like think outside the box. They're
Yes.
just seeing it as a number and okay,
Yes.
it's got to be okay. We need wheelchair accessibility there, or we need doors to be this, but they're not actually putting themselves in your chair or
Correct.
your shoes, right?
Or understanding that, like, if you were to look at mine and Alex's wheelchairs, they are 2 different sizes. So it's not one size fits all as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So there's a lot to go into, the thought process.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I'll bet you they appreciated that.
It was a lot of fun. I would say it's one of my top favorite projects I've done so far.
That's awesome.
Now, how often do you do projects like that?
I would say that was my first big one so far.
Okay.
Within that scale of things.
Nice. Anything coming down the pipeline of up and coming projects like that?
I think we've started doing 8-day walkthroughs for different organizations and companies where we can help go through their building and kind of identify where they could improve accessibility.
Oh, that's what we were talking, like you did that with the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation with Shannon, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. That's great.
Yeah.
So how can people get that maybe are just learning about what you guys do, how can they get more involved? Is there a place for them to donate or volunteer, or how do they learn more, or how do they donate or get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So folks can always call us. Our phone number is 734-971-0277. And we're always happy to connect people with whomever they might be needing to talk to in our organization. In addition, there's our website, www.dnwml.org. And that is a place where you can go online, ask questions, as well as donate, look at what we're doing. We keep a calendar up there of our different events. We send out a regular newsletter probably about every week that just has a whole listing of not only our events, but other things that we know are going on in the community that might be of interest to the folks we work with. So I think those are probably some of the best ways to stay connected. But, I mean, really it is as simple as a phone call.
That's cool.
Is there any, I remember when I was there, there was a room area for donations. Do you guys look for anything in particular, like if people have a stair ramp or something like that at their house that they just don't need anymore, or they can donate? Do you guys have any kind of program like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That would be our assistive technology loan closet. So we do take donations from folks for a number of different items, anything from manual wheelchairs like mine to commodes, stools, walkers, canes. We try not to take anything that's too big, as well as we try not to take power chairs. But we will connect folks with other individuals who might take those things. So power chairs they're very, very customized to the person typically. And so it's not as simple as donating back out into the community. And frankly, we've just been losing storage space over the years. And so trying to keep portable ramps, trying to keep stair lifts and things like that are just not feasible for us anymore. But we can connect folks about those things. And we do give out a lot of those equipment all over time. We call it a loan closet, but frankly, folks don't need to bring it back at any point. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And either way, that's perfectly fine by us.
That's great. And so as far as any other programs that you're doing out in the community, folks can find out, is there volunteer options? They can find out about that on the website as well?
They can find out about that on the website. I know every year we do what we call disability awareness workshops with 4th grade classes in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. And we always need volunteers for that. So that's wrapping up kind of for this year. So I think we're almost done. But come next year, we always need volunteers again. They come in the morning, work with kids, talk about disability as well as kind of some of the barriers we face in the community. And it's a good time. It's exhausting, but it's a great
all day
activity.
with a bunch of 4th graders?
It's a half day, but it feels like
Yeah.
all day. I always want to go home afterwards. So
I bet. Anything coming up in the summer that people should know about?
Yeah, so we always do what we call our Americans with Disabilities Act anniversary celebration, which is July 26th. And so right now we don't have a lot of specifics, I think, to share out, but we typically try to have some sort of outdoor gathering, whether it's at our building or a park or something like that. And it's just an opportunity to connect with folks in the community and have a nice time. Also coming up is our long delayed ribbon cutting of our Monroe office. I believe that's April 25th this year. We had gotten into a new space down there literally before COVID started. So we had been planning to do our ribbon cutting up until March when everything just kind of
shut down.
Mm-hmm. So finally we're back to doing that again. I think those are kind of two of the bigger
You'll probably
things.
brand the building, right, with Center of Independent Living, and then now that you're back in it, rebrand everything
Rebrand it
for
again. Yeah.
Disability Network.
Yep.
So you're doing the ribbon cutting through the chamber at
Yep.
all? Or? Good.
Yeah, we're connected with them as well as a lot of other folks down there. So excited to do that.
Excellent.
Good. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Alex and Izzie, learning more about Disability Network in Washtenaw, Livingston, and Monroe counties. And looking forward to keeping in touch and helping out any way we can.
Yeah, thank you again for having us.
Thank you for
yes.
having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.